Welcome to Don't Fuck This Up, the podcast answering the ultimate question, how the fuck did you land that cool job? I'm your host, Lauren Alvarez. Hello and welcome to another exciting episode of Don't Fuck This Up. It's episode 14 and today's conversation is super inspiring. It's going to hype you up. It's going to make you want to go for it and try your own thing because that's exactly what today's guest did. I'm so excited to welcome Scott Kaylin, the founder and CEO of Kaylin Kaylin Pickles, to the show. Scott, welcome to Don't Fuck This Up.
Well, I'm going to try not to fuck this up.
Yeah, could you? Yeah.
I'll do my best.
Absolutely. You know, we have a lot. I'm so excited to dive in. But first of all, how's it going for you? How are you doing today?
I'm doing well, really well, actually.
Great.
You know, I usually function best with 100,000 balls in the air, and that's pretty much where I am at the moment.
Safe to say, yeah, safe to say you've always got a lot going on. I love it. Yeah. I mean, you know, you've had such an amazing kind of trajectory. And one thing that really stood out to me when we met was just around your reinvention. I mean, you didn't start off in food or restaurants or packaged pickle goods for that matter. I mean, you started off in apparel, right?
Yes. Very far away from where I've ended, actually, or ended up, I should say. Not ended, actually.
Yeah.
Just beginning.
Yeah, totally. I mean, so what was your former career like?
I grew up and was in the fashion industry in New York.
Amazing.
For the first 15 years, I had a sourcing business where I basically sourced production for importers and retailers, predominantly in women's apparel. I've literally only worked for 3 people in my entire career. So I've been a entrepreneur from the day I was born. I just always enjoyed figuring things out and never, as my mother used to say, I never danced to the typical drum that everyone else did. I never followed that path. And then for the second 15 years, I was one of the founders of a company called Champion System, which kind of revolutionized the custom technical apparel business. So I made clothing for cyclists, triathletes, and runners. Very fun, cool business. We had outfitted teams in the Tour de France and, you know, people in Kona. And it was, again, a world that I didn't necessarily come from, but found myself in and flourished in it for a long time.
That's amazing. I mean, so what made you obsessed with pickles? Is this a lifelong thing as well?
So I think sometimes you don't realize how much you enjoy and love something and how important it is to your survival until you can't get it.
Oh, yeah, definitely.
That's basically what happened to me. So my household's kind of funny. So my wife was also and still is in the fashion industry. She's probably one of the top 3 experts in the world on bras. So my house is pickles and tatas. So.
Yeah. That's pretty good. I think you're onto something there. Yeah.
We did do a giveaway together once and gave away a year's worth of pickles and panties. It was very successful.
It's better than pickle scented bras, you know, for that matter. Yeah.
So, she has had a very, very successful career, and she was hired to basically run product for Lululemon in Vancouver.
Oh, amazing.
And she's actually Canadian, so this was kind of a dream job for her. I was wearing Lululemon before it ever came into the U.S., so it was an amazing opportunity. And I went with her in her last round of interviews and literally fell in love with Vancouver. It's an amazing, amazing place. And when she came out, I said, if you get the job offer, I said, I think you should take it. And she kind of looked at me like I was crazy. She goes, we have a home. We have all our friends. Kids are just leaving. And I said, the worst thing that could happen is we'll go back. I said, but there's something about this place that is just striking to me. Amazing food scene, which I am a big foodie, although I was never in the industry. Also super active. I was in that world. So we moved to Vancouver. And when I got there, everything I thought about it was perfect, except 2 things. My kids always laugh when I say this. I did miss my children.
Yes.
but what I really missed was pickles. I couldn't find an edible pickle. And I realized, like, all of a sudden it made me realize that I always had like 4 or 5 jars of pickles in my refrigerator at all times.
Wow.
And I literally hunted to find a pickle because I couldn't find one to put across my lips. Even to the point that I heard that there was a really cool pickle place in Pike Market across the border.
In
I
Seattle?
even went to Seattle to try to find pickles, and they weren't very good. So I came home to my wife one day and I said, you know what? I said, I need to bring pickles here from New York. And she kind of looked at me like I was crazy. But as I said, being an entrepreneur my whole life, I've done a lot of crazy things.
Yeah.
And I always had this vision that pickles could stand on their own if you had different flavors of them. Instead of it just being a condiment, you could maybe actually build things around the pickle instead of the other way around. So I started looking into this, and it was, I was still running my clothing company at the time. And we went on a hike with one of my wife's high school friends who she was schoolmates at some point that she bumped back into. And her husband was there, and we started talking, and I was mentioning this thing about not being able to find a pickle. And he said to me, he goes, you know what? I'm from the East Coast of Canada, and they have great pickles there, but the pickles here are horrible. So I just casually said, maybe we'll do this together. And he was a branding guy, never owned his own business before, but he had a background in advertising, and he was building websites for people at the time. And he sent me some really cool things that night about branding ideas for this concept. So I called him up and I said, do you want to go in the pickle business? I mean, I didn't know the guy. And he said, oh, it sounds kind of cool. I said, well, next week is the Pickle Fest in the Lower East Side of Manhattan. Let's go. So we got on a plane. We flew to New York, and we started talking to picklers. And I started sharing this concept that I had. And after talking to probably 20 different picklers, we found a 3rd generation pickler who said, hey, you know what? I'll do this with you guys. We'll try it. I do some flavors. We'll find some cool stuff. We'll figure it out. And we fly back, and we go into a place called Granville Island, which has a very similar vibe to where we are now, like the original farmers market. I had no idea that there was like a 2,000 company waiting list. It's owned by the province. I didn't know any of this. And we went in and we're like, we want to build this pickle tasting bar. And they kind of looked at me like I was crazy. And they said, well, we'll give you like a table. You could pop up, sell your pickles. I'm like, no. Think if the first Starbucks opened up here. Would you be excited about that? And they said, yeah, of course. I said, well, think of us as the Pickles of Starbucks. And we came in with a business plan and showed them this bar we wanted to. And they came back to us and said, sounds very interesting. We want to try your pickles. I don't have any pickles at this point. So I called the guy up from New York. I go, we got to do a small batch of these flavors. And I flew to New York, and I put them in my suitcase and prayed I'd be able to cross the border with them. And I got them across the border, and we go to this meeting, and I think I'm going to sit down. The 2 of us are going to sit with these 2 women we met with, and they bring us into a conference room, and 13 people walk in and surround this table. Did you have
enough pickles?
I chopped up all the pickles into little pieces. I handed them out, and within 5 minutes, they turned around and said, we're going to figure this out for you.
That's amazing.
So they turned around and gave us basically a space. So there's all different food stalls. They're all permanent, but the aisles are quite wide, and they usually have like tables there. They said, we're going to give you this. And it was basically in the middle of an aisle. There was nothing there except a concrete floor. So we had to break the floor, build this pickle bar. So we built a 138 square foot pickle tasting bar, and we opened in February of 2017. And we had no idea what we were doing. Neither one of us was ever in a retail business, food business. I was a manufacturer,
right? And
in clothing. And I have to now figure out how to get a pallet of pickles that are perishable and refrigerated across the United States, across a border, find someone that will do cold storage for us with 1 pallet, because nobody wants to talk to you with 1 pallet.
Sure.
And I figure it out. And we bring in a pallet of pickles, which is about 6,600 pickles, 6,600 cucumbers in these 3 flavors. We open up in February of 2017, very slow time, one of the slowest periods. 6 days later, sold out. Done.
Incredible. So 6 days of being in business, essentially.
6 days being in business, 6 days of the 2 of us in there. This place is open 7 days a week.
Yeah.
We put up a big sign says, Chris and Scott have gone pickling. Thank you, Vancouver, for loving our pickles. Bring in 2 more pallets. 2 weeks later, 10 days, sold out. So now we know we have a business. So in 2 years, we open a second location. We get into grocery stores. We get into restaurants.
Incredible.
And we sit and say, if this is going to be a real business, we have to bring it into the U.S. It's no longer a hobby. This is not just a goofy idea because I couldn't find to eat any pickles. We have we have a 7-figure business here that we built in a very short period of time. So I'm stepping down from my clothing company. I'm going into this full force, and we're going to figure out where to open up in the U.S. because basically the population of Canada is the size of Southern California. So as great as it is, we need to be able to really distribute this.
So was that the impetus for moving, Scott? So it was just about the wanting to reach the masses, and you kind of felt like you were going to hit that peak too quickly in Canada, so the U.S. was a better market?
It's not even hitting the peak. It's that the opportunity to really do this, you need a bigger audience.
Yeah.
Now, at the exact same time, my wife had decided to leave Lulu, and she was thinking about opening her own business. She had taken a position with a startup in L.A., so it was like, okay, L.A. could make sense. We looked literally from, in Seattle, San Francisco. We wanted to be in the same environment. And we ended up settling at the original farmers market.
Doesn't sound like much of a settling. I mean, they have such a great reputation.
Forgive me. I love my choice of what we did. I guess that's a poor choice of words. It was actually between the original farmers market and the Grand Central Market. Grand Central Market's super hip, cool. Young person had just bought it, and I liked it, but I felt for what our vibe was and the fact that there weren't enough people downtown yet in LA that we would really work on Fairfax. And it was probably one of the, not the best, but one of the best decisions I've made for this business. We'll get to the best decision I made very shortly. And we also did something no one ever done before. It took a year to open this 200 square feet just because of, it takes a long time in LA and permitting. And I asked the market if we could do pop-ups outside. And they kind of looked at me like I was crazy. No one had ever asked them to do that. And this place has been open for 85 years.
Yeah.
And I said, come on, let me just set up on the weekends, give people exposure to the brand. And it was phenomenal, super successful. And then when we opened, which was February of 2020.
Great timing.
1 month before shutdown, we had one of the most successful openings in the history of the market. So COVID hits. And I'm like, I can't, we had so much love from the community. I have to figure out a way to stay open.
Yeah. I mean, that was a wild time to be in the food industry in general. The pandemic was really, the way we ate, the way we consumed food, how we ordered, how we showed up in restaurant workers. Was it essential? Was it not essential? There was a lot of drama there. And
cost and figuring it out. And the essential thing is what's interesting. So I had to get rid of my staff. I had a staff of 10 at the time. The only 10 vendors stayed open in the market. And I went to the health department and said, I want to stay open. And they kind of looked at me and I said, I'm essential. I go, why are you essential? I said, because I sell cucumbers and cucumbers are a vegetable and vegetables are essential. So they said, you know what? Great. You can stay open. But what we have is a pickle tasting bar where there's a tasting station and you can try. We have 12 different flavors. Now, people have never seen 12 different flavors of pickles. So if they can't taste it, they have no idea what it is. So I had to figure out how to survive through this.
Because you couldn't do sampling, right?
Well, we did sampling. We used to give samples out. That was the whole premise. But not
during the pandemic.
So I created a pickle flight. So if I'm charging for it, it's no longer a sample. It's a purchase.
I love this.
So 5 flavors of your choice. We charge you $3. And then if you purchase something, we give you $2 back. And that flight has become a major part of who we are, what we do, the experience. At our pickle bar, my staff knows we don't sell pickles, we sell the experience. I mean, even to the point that Secrets of LA put us out as a $3 date night in LA.
I did see that. I was going to ask you about that. I mean, a $3 date is pretty hard to come by these days. So, yeah.
So it becomes super fun. I mean, we have customers that buy containers of pickles every week, but still do the flights.
Really?
And it's become, yeah.
All right. So I'm just going to have to ask you, if you're going to pick a flight, you're going to pick 5 flavors of the 12. There's 12 flavors still?
Correct.
What would you choose?
That's easy, actually.
Great.
So number one flavor, 100% honey mustard. So
it's a banger. I tried it and it's so good.
So if somebody comes to the pickle bar, basically it's, we'd be happy to give you a sample for free. We hawk. We ask everybody that walks by the bar, would you like to try a pickle? Would you like to try a pickle? People come by, we're happy to give you one for free, or we do the flight. And if I'm working in the pickle bar, I'm like, you can choose 5 or let me take you on a pickle adventure.
And I will say, you took me on a pickle adventure, and as someone who was nicknamed Pickles as a kid, fun fact, I was in heaven. This was the best.
Thank you. So I would put on that flight honey mustard, sweet heat. I usually give people 6 when I'm doing it if they let me choose myself. Jalapeno, spicy garlic spears.
Those were great.
Classic dill.
Yeah.
And then as a 6th, I would either put in spicy dill or horseradish.
I love it. And so the spicy is something that you don't really see a lot. I mean, I'm sure there's other people who are, kind of jumping on your train now. But I mean, with the spice, how do you manage that? Because oftentimes when spice is sitting for so long, no, don't give away any secrets, but how do you control how spicy is spicy?
I mean, it does. The one thing is, like, some people come and they want like a ghost pepper, and that's not who we are. That's not who we are. So a lot of our spice, it creeps on towards the end. It's not something that hits you in the face because it's still a pickle. So we want that in certain of the flavors, we want that pickle sensation and that flavor, but to be elevated by what we do through the flavor to your palate.
I mean, that's incredible. And I think that, what's so interesting, and you mentioned this too, because you take people on a pickle adventure if they're willing to go, and you're down working at the pickle bar, you're still super involved in the day-to-day of your company. And correct. I mean, it's rare sometimes to see founders so, immersed in it. If there is such a thing, what is a typical day for you like at Kaylin Kaylin?
Okay. So the thing that changed during COVID, and that'll, I guess, explain what my day is like and why it is the way it is.
Yeah.
My wife turned around to me and she said, I've seen you successful. I've seen you fail. I've seen you happy. I've seen you stressed. Every emotion under the sun except one. She goes, I've never seen you unhappy when it came to work. And I sat back and I really started to think about what she was saying. And it made me realize that I was very unhappy in my business partnership. And it wasn't that my business partner was a bad guy. It was nothing to a negative sense about him, except we didn't function the same way. One of the biggest discrepancies we had was, I always said from the beginning, we're the brand. We should be the brand. You and I are going to be the Ben and Jerry's of pickles. And he always said to me, and he's from advertising, he was like, we are not the brand. We can't be the brand. The company has to be the brand. It's bigger than we are. And I always really disagreed with that. And just how we kind of managed business was very different. So I called him up out of the blue. We're surviving in COVID. Our business is starting to thrive again. And we had a big business up in Vancouver. And I said, look, I can't be your business partner anymore. And he was like, excuse me? I said, it's not about the money. I said, it's about my quality of life. I said, there's too much stress in us being together as business partners. I said, and it's just not worth it for me. I said, I've done too many things. I've had too many successes in my life and been in so many partnerships. Every business I've had has had a partner or 2 partners. I am still very close with all of them. I said, this is just not working. And I said, I'm going to give you everything. I'm going to give you the entire Canadian business, the wholesale business, the retail business. I'm going to give you the website. I'm going to give you the Instagram. Take it. Whatever financial obligations we have, I'll cover my 50%. Go on. Take my name, because it was called Kaylin and Hobbs. I go, I'll take my name. You take yours. I want to keep the LA retail location. Now, financially, very scary thing to do. Because we had a business, huge risk. A functioning business. And LA was just opened. That was one of the best decisions I've ever made in my entire career. And I sat back, breathing, and said, what am I doing? What does this business do? And I said, this business makes people smile. It makes people happy. That's what the experiences. That's what the product does.
Hmm.
So I rebranded everything. It was basically my post pickle and my pickle life. Most people think I have two daughters named Kaylin. I do have two daughters named Kaylin, but it's their last name.
Yeah.
My tagline became happiness in every crunch.
Hmm.
And my journey actually started at that point. And this is by far right now at this moment, the smallest business I've ever owned, and the business that I work in more than I ever did. I work 7 days a week, and I've never been happier. And I love what I do, how I do it, and the grind that I have to go through, because there are certain things that have exploded this business that have caused me to physically have to work 16 or 17 hours a day for several months at a time to get to where we are right now. And those were all amazing and positive parts of the journey. So that is what transitioned to Kaylin and Kaylin. And to my days can range anywhere from starting at, it also depends on what period. Where I am right now is I'm doing everything possible to figure out how to work on my business instead of in it, to be quite honest. But,
yeah,
we have a retail business where we have our pickle tasting bar in the original farmers market. We have an e-commerce business that literally exploded. I mean, beyond anyone's wildest dreams because of social media. And I'll be happy to share that journey. It's crazy. And again, just beginning. We have a wholesale business that has a food service business to restaurants. And we're just waiting now to start. We're on a very few small amount of local shelves that we work with that have been really important partners to us. Places like Lady and Larder and, the people like John and Vinny's, and we have stuff in LAX. But I've really waited to get into the right supermarket before we go on a grocery store shelf because of social media and what's happened with our e-commerce, we're becoming a nationally known brand without going into a grocery store.
I mean, that's incredible. You're really on a pickle-shaped rocket ship, riding it straight to the moon. I mean, this is amazing. And I mean, I'm so curious, when you're navigating these larger transitions, what has been a source of confidence for you? Because it does take a lot of guts to just say, hey, this thing's going really great. I might fuck this up, but I got to do it. So where does your confidence come from?
Honestly, my mind doesn't think any other way. I mean, I have my dark days like everyone. I mean, there are days I wake up and I don't want to get out of bed and I want to crawl up in a corner and I'm like, what am I doing? I'm 59 years old. I'm not a kid. I did these changes after a really successful career. And took a lot of financial risk because my wife, after leaving a huge corporate job, also at the same time turned around and said, now it's my time and I have to open my own business and we have to finance it. And, I haven't made a penny for the last 5 years and as successful as I was, it wasn't like I had unlimited funds and it was not going to matter. And we took a huge risk at this stage of life.
Yeah.
So doing that, I don't know any other way. So to the days that I have the greatest fear, I look back and I say, you know what? I have no choice. I don't have a choice. I've never given myself a choice. I don't know anything but to keep grinding and to keep going. And if you fall down, you got to get up. Now, everyone's not built for that. They're not.
Yeah, that's true.
I know a lot of really successful people in huge corporate jobs that it's all they ever wanted to do is own their own business. And the second they did that, they failed. And for myself, watching what my wife went through in the corporate world, I don't know how well I would have survived in there because I don't kiss ass very well.
I mean, I think, and I think that's a great thing, Scott, though, is that there are people who are just like, I'm not meant to have a boss. Like, I'm my boss. It is me. And I think that when you can identify that and you have in multiple iterations in your career and in the different careers you've held, different companies you've held, that's incredible.
I will tell you, though, the smartest thing that someone shared with me, and I try to live with it and live with it even more now, the greatest boss finds people that are smarter than them in different aspects. Because I've been a master of nothing. I have tasted and done operational work, sales, marketing. Obviously, my sweet spot is this. My sweet spot is talking to people. My sweet spot is being out of the box with marketing and figuring out how to get my brand to places that people sit back and scratch their head and say, how did you do that? That's what I love. But again, I'm not an expert in any of those things. So you got to get to a point where you build the right team and find the right people.
Yeah.
And it's hard. Retail, it's brutal to find good people and the right people and support people and not become jaded when you get burnt by employees, because it always happens. It just does. It's the nature of things, but it's the same thing. How do I keep going and taking the risk? I don't lose faith in the fact that there are good people out there, and I want to share the journey. And, my philosophy in life and business has always been, if anyone asks me for 15 minutes of my time, I'll give it to them, because I don't know. I might do a great business deal. I might do a new friend, or maybe I can pay it forward. And the people that have helped me in my life, I get a chance to do that for someone else.
I mean, that's incredible. And now that you're hiring teams, I mean, are there things that, you're thinking about? Are you making a list of, these are the things I'm worst at, these are the things I despise doing, these are the things I can't quite give up yet? Like, how do you determine for you when it's time to hire on those roles and to hand over, the baton to somebody else to run it for you? Because I know it's not you having more time to do nothing. It's so you have more time to take on the list of things that no one else is thinking of. So how do you determine that? And what's kind of your thought process when you are wanting to hire new people?
And this has been a little bit different for me, even recently.
Yeah.
I've been doing it a little sooner than later. I would always in my business get to the point where it's like, if I don't get some help, something's going to start breaking.
Yeah, it's a dumpster fire. And then you're like, do you want to come work in this dumpster fire? And they're like, no, that's terrifying. Yeah.
And now I'm got more to the point where I see what the next two steps are. So I'm going to start looking now.
Yeah.
Instead of when I have to. And if I find somebody tomorrow, awesome. I'll have to bite the bullet and spend money that I might not necessarily have, but then that person's going to be in line in the 3 or 4 months from now when that next thing's going to happen. Or I'm going to wait that 3 or 4 months and suffer through it till I find the right person.
Yeah. And I think that's so interesting that, I mean, honestly, I want to congratulate you on getting to that place where you can see around those corners, because as someone who does a lot of executive coaching, works with a lot of founders, it's often the former that you spoke of waiting until things are too critical, too surgical. And then all of a sudden you're coming in and someone's coming into a complete nightmare, or you're just not setting yourself up for the next launch or the next drop or the next campaign, whatever's happening. Right. You're not ready. And those people need to ramp up. So I think you're really fostering an amazing environment for your employees, and that's hard to do.
It's been a journey.
Yeah.
It's also, when you have a small business, there's limited resources.
Right.
You have limited resources. I will share one of the biggest lessons I learned from my prior business, and I will not do this in this, because I believe with all the things I've done in my career that this is going to be my legacy. Yeah. I do believe that, and it will be. But on that same point, I know I can't do it on my own. And my other business, it got very successful. We revolutionized something, and investors started coming, and Wall Street started coming. And, you sit back, and we made that mistake that a lot of founders make. And it's like, well, if we do another X, then the multiple of our business is going to go 5 times what it is. And I'm going to be, I don't want to give up equity at this point. And, we're on this trajectory. So if we do another $10 million worth of business, I'm going to be on a yacht with my private plane in 5 years. And that was the grandest mistake ever, because the barrier of entry to the industry that we revolutionized became really small. So when we started and had 5 competitors, all of a sudden we had 250 competitors, and we lost market share, and we couldn't keep up because we didn't have the money, and no one was that interested in giving us the money anymore because of the state of what the whole industry did. So in what I'm doing right now, I have a real clear vision on what I want to do and how I want to do it. But I also know that I don't know how to do it exactly in this world. So whoever sees this, I am looking for the right strategic partner to roll out what I'm doing. And I want my piece of it and a fair piece of it. But I'd rather have 25% of something that is crazy successful than 100% of something that's doing well.
Yeah, I think that's, I mean, again, there's just like there is a lens of maturity that you're offering here that I think is really important, that it is really hard because something is, it's your baby. You've grown it from scratch and you're like, it can be really, there's emotion involved in it. As much as we like to say we're business minded, when it's you as the business, there is a level of emotion. And so it's interesting. I mean, you've taken a series of calculated risks. They seem to be paying off big time, which is, I mean, exciting. How do you know when it's time to go and to take that risk, or when it's time to hang back and wait a little bit? Because I can imagine there's a little bit of PTSD there from what you just described.
You know what? They say sometimes it's bad to be in the weeds, but I think in the type of business that I'm in right now, that I am so involved on a daily basis, even with, I just brought on, and I took a lot of time to find the right new manager.
Yeah.
And I'm sure he'll see this. I'm really excited he's here. He's someone seasoned, but I believe really dedicated and in for the long game. So, you know, even watching some of the changes that I want him to make is difficult sometimes, because you're like, but I want that. You know, but when you're in it every day, if you can pull yourself back enough to look inside, which is, I think, again, comes with the amount of years that I've put into doing things wrong and right, you can start to evaluate where the timing is to take that risk. But I don't know. It's just who I am. I mean, everything is not, and there's a lot of people that'll hate to hear this, but it's not always about the numbers.
That's right.
You know, I was in an industry, the fashion industry was so successful for so many years until the bankers came in and started owning the fashion industry.
That's
and
right.
It had nothing to do with creativity or taking a risk or saying, wow, this is this cool new designer. No one knows who they are. We're going to bring them into our stores. And that new designer could have been Ralph Lauren or Calvin Klein. And that's how those people started back then. And now when it's all about the numbers, it's like, well, the risk about bringing this person in and the amount we're going to have to invest to try it is, you know, it's not going to work. Or if it does, the chances of it working doesn't work. For me, I can still make those decisions and say, I have this concept. It's not proven yet, but I believe in my soul it's going to work. And, you know, I have X amount of dollars to do it, but it's going to probably cost me 25% more than that. And you know what? What the hell? You know?
Yeah.
What the fuck?
Yeah. What the fuck? Exactly. I mean, so who were your biggest mentors? I mean, who really brought you up? Because you have that entrepreneurial part of you that's probably just something you were born with. But did you have mentors early on in your career in other spaces that, you know, I'd be so curious.
So it's interesting. So my dad taught me a lot of lessons, both good and bad. So he started basically pushing a broom, working at a clothing company that he eventually ended up owning. So he was a true entrepreneur in his life, big personality. So I learned that from him. He also he spent his entire life doing everything for everyone around him and never anything for himself. And that became his downfall too.
Sure.
Which I learned from, because he had some opportunities where people were taking advantage of him, and he was so much thinking about everyone else that he didn't want to do what was necessary to protect himself in that circumstance.
Yeah.
And it ended up being his downfall, which ended up hurting his family, which ended up putting all of us in a very deep financial problem at a young age. And so I learned a lot from that. And I learned that, I mean, my family is the most important thing to me. My friends, I'm a good person. I'm philanthropic. I give to people. I give back. But I've also learned that, you know what? I need to do some things for myself.
That's right. And
you have to protect yourself, and learning that and trying to find that balance. You know, I used to say that, you know, you got to get to some point in your life where you can look yourself in the mirror, hopefully, and say, I like what I see.
Yeah.
And when I turned 40, I say I learned to embrace my shallow side. And people go, what does that mean?
Oh, yeah, tell me what you mean by that.
And I said, you know what? I look in the mirror. I'm a good father. I'm a good husband. I'm a good friend. I take care of people. I care about people. I try to do the best I can. But there's a part of me that likes the bullshit. And I think most people pretend that they don't. So I turned around and said, you know what? I don't like to wait online. I like to go to a restaurant where people know me. It doesn't define who I am. I don't live my life caring about what everyone thinks or says about me. But some of that bullshit, it's okay. It makes me feel good. I enjoy it. And when I was able to say, you know what? That's okay. That's part of who my personality is. It doesn't define me. I think that's when I embraced that, I think I became the person that I started to become the person that I was meant to be.
I really appreciate that, because I think there is a part about being truthful about who we are in our entirety, and there's such a, facade social media puts out there for us, or we end up wanting to portray something that we can show the highlight reel, we can show the good parts, but also embracing kind of all the bits are the things that make you you, and the things that also set you apart. And I think that that's something, like, I learned that lesson earlier on too, of just if you're always what people want to see, then what makes you interesting? What makes you different? What makes you memorable? And I think it is sometimes the bits of us that are, as you called it, the bullshit. I love it, and I think that, that's really interesting. I mean, you talked about a lot of invaluable advice and lessons in there that you learned and, really, got from your dad. Especially as you've gone into other businesses, what bullshit advice did you receive from other people? Because there's a lot of it out there.
I think the simplest thing is where I'm from originally. And it's more than business than it is in life itself. I love New York. I mean, it's who I am. But when I moved to Vancouver, I became, I think, the best person I could be. And it was very simple. And this happens in business, especially in big cities, New York, LA, Chicago. You meet somebody, they only ask you two questions. What do you do and where do you live? Because you have to be weighed and measured. Is it worthwhile to speak to this person? What can I get from them? Same thing in business. I spent a lot of my time doing business with a lot of assholes and people I didn't like. And the lesson I learned from that was, no matter how much money you make from someone, if you really don't like them, if you don't share the same values, if you don't want to break bread with them, have a drink with them, it's going to end badly. It always does. And I try to instill that in my daughters. Make a decision. What's most important to you? Do you want to love what you do? Do you only care about making money? If you only care about making money, then you have to be a nasty asshole.
Yeah.
You do. You look at all the titans of industry, they stepped on a lot of people to get where they are.
That's
and
right.
If they're okay with that, I can respect that. For me personally, if I really don't like you, I don't care what you can do for me. I don't want to spend time with you. I don't want to do business with you. I don't want to try to make money from you, because it's going to eventually end badly.
Yeah. And does that work on the other side for you? Because sometimes I, have had that feeling too, where no one ever wants to be disliked, and I used to be really uncomfortable with it when I would feel like people didn't like me, it would really fester and it would really take over for me. And that was something that I really had to work past, because you know what, there could be people that I could do everything in the world for them and they still don't like me, and that's on them. Right. But I mean, does it work that way for you too? Because I mean, your whole business is centered on happiness, on smiles, on, optimism and good energy. So what happens when someone's just an absolute asshole?
Well, at my retail location, we have no politics and a true no asshole policy. That's the greatest thing is in what I do right now. There are very few people that become unhappy around my business right now.
Yeah. How could you be miserable working in this business?
So I'm very fortunate with that. Even when we hire new people and you used to always ask in retail, well, how do you deal with an unhappy customer? We don't have too many unhappy customers. And if there is an issue, it's super important, forgetting about the money aspect of it, to always stand behind the product and stand behind the experience.
Yeah.
I had I've had two weird experiences I'll share. So our honey mustard pickle, we always say converts 98% of people that hate mustard, hate honey mustard, and hate pickles.
I witnessed this firsthand when I was at the pickle bar. There was someone who said, I don't even like pickles. And you said, you should just try this one. And they liked it. I mean, that was amazing. I got to see this happen.
So that's a big, like, I always love that person. There's always one person in the group. So I pride myself on trying to convince that person to try the pickle. And there was one woman who came to the pickle bar, and I'm trying to convince her. And she turns around and looks at me and goes, "You are a typical man that's turning around to a woman and asking her why she's not smiling."
Oh my God.
And I was like, my staff everyone's face dropped open. And I said, and I looked and I said, look, I said, first of all, I got to be honest with you. I find that extremely insulting. I said, because you're not going to be around a man who respects women more than I do. I said, so to say that to me, I'm actually really insulted. I said, and understand, this is just part of our shtick. Yeah. I said, we're just trying to make the experience fun for you. I was not by any way trying to insult you, and to think that I was throwing myself and trying to mansplain you into eating my honey mustard pickle.
Super serious here.
And that was literally the only bad experience. And then we had one conspiracy theorist who came up, and he wanted a written receipt, and we don't have written receipts. So we said we could text it or email it. And he started freaking out because he didn't know what we were going to be doing with his personal information. And I said, look, this is a politically free zone. I'm really sorry. I said, I'm happy to give you your money back. I'm happy, whatever you want to do to make you comfortable. I said, I don't even get your email. It goes into the POS system. I don't even get to see it. I mean, he was freaking out. Calm down. And he left. And then his daughter came back 2 minutes later, apologized, and bought the pickles anyhow. With her credit card and got an email receipt.
Oh my gosh. Yeah. I mean,
literally out of the thousands of transactions, I think those are the only two people that I've ever encountered.
I mean, and it's really funny because the first one was like, all I could think of is I used to do stand-up comedy in New York, and it's like the people who sit at the front table and they don't want to be interacted.
Don't sit at the front of a comedy club.
Don't sit at the front of that's the first lesson we learned here. But the other one would be like, if you do sit there, like, it's all in good fun. It's never meant to be that personal. So yeah, I love that you do have a shtick with the pickle bar, and I mean, you talked about like kind of the things you don't enjoy, like who would be like and don't give away anything if there is something in the works. This is totally an innocent question. Yeah. Who would be a dream partner to collaborate with, for you? Like, is there a company or a person that you're like, this would be the coolest collaboration?
Honestly, there is one.
Yeah. And you're not gonna, you can't tell us.
I'll say it. I would like to do. I would. So there is one very famous person. He's an actor who I love, and he's also literally, if you go on the bio of his Instagram, it talks about pickles. Really? Yes, Matthew McConaughey.
Oh my gosh, that would be amazing. He would come to the pickle bar and say, "All right." I mean, he probably would say a lot of other things. I mean,
we have a lot of, we have a lot of famous people that come to the pickle bar.
That's fun.
We work with a lot of personal chefs that I know our pickles are in. I mean, some really, really, really serious people's refrigerators.
Cool.
And you know what? It's the same way that social media has been successful for us. We never ask anything from creators.
Yeah.
It's always, if I get the opportunity to send somebody pickles, it's, hey, if you think these are worthy to post about, please post about them. If not, just enjoy them. And 95% of anybody that's received the pickles that way has done a post.
That's so fun. Are they always the honey mustard, or what's the the ones that are posted?
I mean, there's a lot of people that have a lot of different favorites, but the honey mustard definitely stands several levels above everything else.
It's amazing. I mean, let's talk about social media, because it has been part of the story. And, when we talked, you said, and I didn't know anything about it. So I love that you had that humility right up front with me. But I mean, you essentially went viral. Is that right?
So really, really interesting. And I can tell you that each specific circumstance that changed everything. So we had Instagram and we started posting, and it started doing well, nothing crazy, slowly started growing. And I started noticing that there were a whole bunch of creators in the plaza outside the farmer's market creating content for TikTok. Mm-hmm. So when I'm at the pickle bar, I usually have various different T-shirts with a white shirt underneath and a bow tie on. So I grabbed a bunch of pickles and I went out into the plaza and I said, hey, we have pickles if you want to do some fun content. So a bunch of them came over. They started trying the pickles like, oh my God, these are so good. And this girl grabs me and she goes, come into my TikTok. So that was my first experience going into a TikTok. And it was like a 2-second thing. And it was a girl named Josette who has 10 million followers. And that was my first experience. And that went to, I don't know, probably maybe 400,000 or 500,000 views. And then a week later, she brings this guy, J.O., over. And he hates pickles and he hates mustard. And I go through this whole thing with him. And I don't know they're filming it. And he eats it and he flips out. And
in a good way.
If you go onto TikTok, and it's called, I think it's under J.O. I Hate Pickles. And I think that was at probably 3 or 4 million views. So I called up my social media person and I'm like, we need to really get onto TikTok. So we get onto TikTok, we start doing some creative stuff. Nothing's really exploding, but I started meeting a lot of creators and listening to them and, hearing their experiences. And I met this guy, Gabe, who was one of like the OGs. He started on Vine and he really loved the product and what we were doing. And I really paid attention. And at the end of the day, understanding that there is no real specific formula for success.
Yeah.
For us, it's being genuine about it. And so one day I'm sitting on my couch and my younger daughter calls me up and she goes, Dad, you're going viral. And I'm like, what are you talking about? She goes, you're going viral. You've got to get onto your TikTok. And there's a huge TikToker named Tana Mojo who's crazy and she's known for loving pickles. She's got about 7 million followers. And somebody told her about our pickles. And she decided to go find our pickle tasting bar. And she did a 3-minute TikTok about our pickle bar.
What was her favorite?
Honey mustard.
Okay. We have a theme here.
So that is the first thing that blows up. And then within a week span, we have our own first viral TikTok. And they collide. Gosh. So now I have an e-commerce business. This is 2022, not pushing anything. My plan was to push it for 2023. And, I'm shipping 20 orders a week, 15 orders a week. I'm shipping them myself. I'm going in on a Monday morning, packing up the orders for the week, bringing them to the little post office. And that's our e-commerce business. So when the Tana thing hit and ours hit, I get about 800 orders, which is insane. Okay. And now what's happening is because of all this, we start getting creators reaching out to us because the content's there. Tana takes the pickles home. A week later, she posts again about eating them with her friends. And then we've got other creators in and all this stuff's starting to happen. And so things are starting to slowly grow. On December 28th, I finally took some time off. My kids went to visit from New York. We're up in Los Olivos in the wine country. And I wake up and my site has exploded. I mean, exploded. And I call up my social media person, what's going on? She goes, I don't know. And I'm like, if this keeps going, I'm going to have to shut the site down. So what happened was there was a woman in October who reached out and she goes by Positively Page. And she said, she reached out, she goes, I have 1 million followers. I do reviews. I'm pregnant. I would love to try your pickles. So any creatives that reach out, we always, that's our marketing budget. We send pickles. So I send her pickles. She sends me a DM. She goes, thank you so much. I'm having a really bad first trimester. I can't try the pickles. I'm really sorry. I said, don't worry about it. I hope you feel better. I reach out a couple of weeks later. How are you feeling? I don't hear anything. She felt really bad that she never tried the pickles. So she went online and bought $80 worth of pickles herself, got them to her house, and reviewed them with her husband. That video is currently at about 8 million views.
Oh my gosh.
So I have to shut the site down because I can't take any more business. I don't even know how I'm going to deal with it. I mean, we got an entire year's worth of orders in 24 hours.
Oh.
This is thousands of orders.
This disrupted your vacation too, but not for nothing.
So then we put out a thing on our website and on our social that says, hey, if you want to learn about the restock, Paige blew us up. Thank you, blah, blah, blah. I called her up. She did another post that said, the owner called me up. We blew them up, shut them down. He called me a Christmas miracle. Da, 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 da. Have faith. They're going to restock. Don't worry. And we said, give us your email and we'll notify you about the restock. We got 25,000 emails in 2 days.
Wow.
Now, remember, I'm a 200 square foot business that was shipping 25 orders a week. So I figured it out. And that was that period. I was working 17 hours a day for 2 months. And, we eventually moved everything away and we had somebody packing the jars. And for the last 10 months, I had to control the business. How do I control the business? Because if I opened the site up, if I left that open, we would have gotten 20,000 orders. So I started doing drops like a shoe brand.
I mean, this is really bringing me back to the Granville Market days in Vancouver, right? Like you couldn't keep them in stock.
So scarcity model. We would send out an email and say, on Friday at 4 p.m., we're going to open the site.
Wow.
Limited, get in quick. 7 to 9 minutes, we would sell out again. And the sellout would be sizable.
I was going to say, how much is the sellout? And you don't have to say the number, but it's big, right? It's not 25.
No, that's what you should imagine the people that would call me up and go, well, you don't know how to run your business and just make more pickles. And some guy called me on the phone once and he goes, you don't know what the hell you're doing. He says, I don't understand. Just make more. What are you doing? So I said to him, I'll make you a deal. He said, what? I said, buy my business. I'll work for you. And you can tell me and show me how to do it. And he goes, oh, that's too much aggravation.
Yeah.
So it wasn't even, it was managing. I mean, it was thousands of orders. It wasn't 50 orders. Some girl tried to throw me under the bus. She goes, I went viral. I got 40,000 followers. And, I was shipping. What's the big deal? It was a couple hundred orders a week. And it wasn't like that. It was crazy. Yeah. So we did that for 10 months. And over that period of time, we got more and more and more creators and really people that were just amazing that have supported the brand. And we're driving people to a site where you can't buy. So it just kept growing and growing. And then 2 weeks ago is the first time after 10 months, we opened our site. Our site's 100% open. What transpired through that time, I think one of the most validating things that happened to me was I was invited to TikTok and to come speak to their small business unit. Incredible. To share the success. Now, for me, there's a video of that on our Instagram and on our TikTok, obviously, but it showed the day and walking into the office in Culver City with his 1,400 employees. And on this 60-foot wall, it says, welcome Kaylin and Kaylin to TikTok. And it was just really validating. And I've continued that relationship with them. They've just invited me actually to do a live next week out of their creators lounge. So that relationship's continuing. And, the crazy thing is we've never paid a single creator.
It's amazing.
It's all been because look, I've had people come to the Pickle Bar that have 15 million followers and they post and nothing happens.
Yeah.
Because if it's not authentic for us, again, I don't know the exact formula, but I know for our videos, what really works, people like to visually see things. They like the pouring of the product to see the pickles. And when someone reviews it, they review it in a real way. It's not an ad. And that's what's resonated, with honestly, I mean, for us, we have 153,000 followers on TikTok, but we've probably had 40 or 50 million eyes on the brand this year between all the other creators that have put, content out. And I'm just humbled and really, really grateful to all of them and to TikTok and to Instagram because they really, how do you touch my daughter who works for Anheuser-Busch in their marketing department, she said to me, she said, Dad, for you to touch that many people in traditional advertising would have cost you like between $3 and $5 million.
Yes.
You know, I'm a tiny little business. How does that, you can't do that. But we still touched all those people.
So do you teach your daughters how to use social media? Is that what you're telling me? Yeah.
Oh, no. No. If I could afford my older daughter, I'd hire her in a second.
That's amazing. I love that. I mean, yeah. I mean, what goals are you pursuing right now? Because like I said, I think you're on a pickle-shaped rocket ship. So where is that taking us next? And what can you share with our listeners?
I have a second concept that is more of an eat now concept that I'll be opening hopefully in the next 3 to 4 months, actually in the original farmers market.
Amazing. So here in LA.
Yep. So really, really, really out of the box. Again, one of those things people will look at like they do with my pickles and go, you know, like I have people that walk by and go, you only sell cucumbers? How do you survive?
Yeah.
I'm surviving.
Yeah.
You know, and I'm going to do some things with pickles that no one's ever done before, as far as how it's served, what it's served with.
Oh, I'm peaked.
People have done bits and pieces of it, but no one's done it as a combination. And in my heart, I believe that is something that I will be able to scale across the country. And then also have a circumstance where I can combine the two, where I think in certain venues, it would be something that would stand on its own. And then I've always struggled with the fact of thinking, how can I have an actual retail store outside of like a market situation, just selling containers of pickles? But I think the combination of this eat now and then being able to leave with our product as well is something that's what I see as the future of the business, and still growing the e-com business. I mean, honestly, at this point, it's bigger than I ever really thought it could actually even be. And I also realize that we've only touched a small amount of people.
Yeah.
There's a lot of pickle lovers out there. And there's a lot of really horrible pickles.
Yeah, that is very true. And, you know, as someone who lived in New York for a long time and who is a lifelong pickle lover, there's very few that, you know, even meet the test. And then you take yourself outside of New York and you need Kaylin and Kaylin, really.
I think that's why it's so easy to convert so many people, because most people have only had a really bad pickle. One of my favorite flavors, the one I eat the most, is a spicy garlic spear.
Yeah,
so
really good.
It's cut in a spear. Now, if you hold up a spear from most pickle places, it falls over. If you get a spear on a sandwich and pick it up, it's going to fall over. Ours stands out. You know, happiness in every crunch is a true meaning. You know, we have some fermented pickles that aren't crunchy. Traditional New York deli pickle, fermented, it's crunchy for the first 2 days it's made, and then it's soft and super sour. But the basis of all of our other pickles, you go on to any TikTok review, any Instagram review, and you listen, and you think that people are using a sound machine when they're eating the pickles.
The crunch.
Oh, yeah.
I love that. That's the soundtrack. I imagine that's what your alarm clock is in the morning. It's just crunches of pickles. I love that. I don't have an
alarm clock. I'm up by 4:30 every day.
Oh my gosh. See, that's a daily ritual that, what are you doing at 4:30, by the way? I'm very curious.
So if it's a good period of my life, I'm working out. If it's a stressful period of my life, I'm on my computer.
Yeah. Do you ever do both? Yeah, you're like running and laptoping. Yeah.
If I go onto my Peloton, I try to stay off my phone, but
that's the move. Yeah.
I mean, my business before I did this was always in Asia, so basically everything I did was 24 hours anyhow. It's just I don't sleep more than 5 or 6 hours. I never have at any stage of my life. It's just.
I mean, you're not saying it, but I'll say it. They say that's the making of a genius, but just
I don't know about that. Yeah. It's a making of someone who can't shut their brain off sometimes. But
I feel you.
I even as a kid, or even when I used to go out and like party all night, I would still function on between 4 and 6 hours. It's just how I'm made.
Yeah. Well, that means you're cut out to be a parent too, because that's like you.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, you're acing that part of the test. Totally. I mean, I can't believe we're coming up on time. I mean, where can people go to learn more about you, about Kaylin and Kaylin? What's next for you? I know that you don't have the pickle drops anymore. You have a full-on e-com
Jump
site
in
so
there,
people
yeah.
can get the orders in. But where would you like them to go?
So everything's the same. Every handle, the website, everything is KaylinKaylin.
Simple.
And then for the website.com, if you look at our branding, it's Kaylin plus Kaylin, but you can't use the plus sign
That's right.
in a URL or on any of the platforms. So it just gets substituted with the word and. And for anyone out there, it's also my email, first name Scott. Feel free to reach out.
I love that. So you want that direct feedback. You want that direct touch base.
Oh my God. My cell phone number is on everything. I am very reachable and, very accepting to any feedback or any questions. I had a woman call me yesterday. She was buying pickles for her boyfriend and she's like, I think I got the wrong flavor by mistake. And I ended up speaking to her for 25 minutes about she's a neuropsychologist and she's like on TikTok and she started asking me about TikTok and we spoke for like 25 minutes. If I have the time, I will always make it. I love that.
I love that. And I think there's that expression, could make friends in an empty church. I think that's probably Scott Kaylin. Scott, what's one
church
final
is never
thought?
empty.
Yeah, the church is never empty. What's one final thought you want to leave our listeners with today?
I guess based on what you call this, you know what? Even if you fuck it up, just pick yourself up and do it again. It's people always say to me, oh my God, I had that idea or I always wanted to do that. And I think the thing that my kids respect the most, and that's more important to me than anything, is I say it, I think about it, and then I do it. And sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't. But if you don't try, you'll never know. You never know.
I love that. Well, Scott, thank you so much. This has been another episode of Don't Fuck This Up, the podcast answering the ultimate question, how the fuck did you land that cool job? I'm your host, Lauren Alvarez, and we'll talk to you next week.
Thank you.
Don't Fuck This Up is a podcast written, produced, and edited by Lauren Alvarez. New episodes dropping every Wednesday. Be sure to follow, rate, and review this and every episode. And until next week, please keep it together and try your best not to fuck this up.